All right. Can everybody hear me okay? Daniel Boone, can you hear me okay? Okay, all right. What about over this direction? Can you hear me okay? Siri, can you hear me okay? All right, I just want to make sure everybody hears. So, if everybody could simmer down, class, class, class. I want to thank you all for coming out. My name is Kent Fortner. I have the honor of being the founder of the Mayoral Brewing Company, along with my business partner, Ryan Gibbons. Ryan, back there behind the bar, raise your hands. Ryan is actually on baby watch number 3 right at this very moment. So if you see him dash out of the room, you'll know what's going on, because we're anticipating yet another baby here coming up shortly. I want to thank everybody for coming out. One thing I want to say to you is we're really looking for a very civil evening tonight. And we always usually have civil evenings here at the Maryland Brewing Company. But just keep in mind, these folks have offered to step up and run for mayor. Whether you agree with them or disagree with them or anything else, they're trying to make our city a better place. And they have taken the commitment to sit up here, and I think we owe them that respect tonight. Susan's going to talk a little bit about the format here in just a minute, but I just want to take the opportunity to tell you guys there's the Makers Fair, which is this huge event going on October 18th through 20th here on the waterfront. And also, if you've got little ones, we have a Halloween event going on over at the mansions. And it's a very safe, fun. There's beer there for the parents if you want it. And we do trick or treat along all of the mansions over there. And that's October 26th. And the last thing I wanted to tell you all was we just started a new program called the Wet Mile Passport Program. You can pick up one of these at Savage & Cook, Godfather, the Quarters Coffee Shop, or here. And if you get it stamped at each location, there's a little gift at the very end, and you can go wander the Wet Mile and come check out all the things that are happening on Mare Island. So a couple things that have been going on here just recently with us. So with that, I just want to remind you all, if we can stay as quiet as possible. Part of the problem is it's so hot that we're going to continue to run the fans, and that makes it a little bit harder on the PA system. So we're going to ask you all to really lean into the microphone. And if you can't hear for some reason, raise your arm and we'll try to figure something out. But we might have to shut off the fans if people are talking too much or you can't hear. So without further ado, I'm going to get Susan Nichols, who is two things. One, she's the head of our Neighborhood Watch program. And number two, I don't think there's ever been a call for volunteers that Susan didn't stand up and volunteer for. So Susan, thank you for what you do, and you're going to go over the agenda.
Right. Well, welcome again, everyone. Thank you. So our agenda is just real straightforward. We're going to have questions that are already prepared to talk about, for each candidate to talk about. And so we're going to run until about 10 to 8, and then there'll be some time for questions, and you can mingle with your candidates if by chance the question wasn't answered, okay? And we're recording this evening tonight, and that's for those people that are on vacation, which Dan Blaze is, or anyone else that couldn't make it tonight. And I just wanted to mention too that if you are concerned about needing to wear a mask, whatever, the masks are fine to wear here. I know it's kind of hot too. So what I'm going to do is introduce Landis, our moderator, and then he'll introduce the candidates. So, thank you so much, Landis, for joining us. This is his second rodeo with us, so he's getting well versed in all of this. He's the founder and chief executive officer of the DCG Strategies, and he's served in many roles in Solano County. He's been on the advisory board of the Vallejo Chamber of Commerce, the advisory board of the Solano Afro-American Chamber of Commerce, and he's served as chair of the Vallejo City Planning Commission. And then he currently serves on the board of Covenant House of California and United Tech Cities. And with his busy schedule, he's agreed to be with us tonight and be our moderator. So we're pleased to have you here tonight. Landis, take it away.
Good evening, everyone. Before we get started, I really just want to take a moment to level set. I've been in their seat. This is not an easy place to be, especially on forums. One of these individuals will be the next mayor of Vallejo. Whether you support that person or not, as a community, we all need to kind of work together collaboratively to move the city forward. Some of these questions that they haven't seen, and I just got them about 20 minutes ago, are a result of just not having a really strong city. And some of the things we're going to talk about could be solved with collaboration from the council, the city manager, staff, and the community at large. So can we just give them each a round of applause just for standing up for the city? And so we'll just take a moment. We'll be really strict on time, but we'll start here, and everyone has opportunity to introduce him or herself.
All right, welcome everybody. I am Pippin Dew. I was born and raised in the Bay Area and have called Vallejo home for the last 20 years. I'm a mom, a graduate of the Haas School of Business at UC Berkeley, and a local businesswoman. As a councilwoman for 9 years, I gained experience in decision making, policy development, and managing public resources. I am prioritizing public safety and community policing. As past chair of the Public Safety Task Force and Policy Committee for the League of California Cities, I gained a deeper understanding of the industry, the laws governing it, and how communities are changing the way they keep communities safe. The police oversight and reform work began during my service, and I am committed to continuing that work while rebuilding a department that the community is proud of, with officers that are honored to serve our community. I am advocating for immediate support from the Sheriff's Office and urging the city to move forward with an agreement between the two agencies. I am also urgently advocating for support from CHP from the governor to address the intolerable levels of crime our community is experiencing today. As a self-employed realtor and president of the Solano Association of Realtors, I have expertise in housing issues, economic development, and real estate market dynamics. In the past year, I had successfully facilitated partnerships to address housing challenges, securing stable housing opportunities for over 100 unhoused individuals at no cost to the city, and securing $95,000 for first-time homebuyer grants. My work after Vallejo's bankruptcy and the COVID crisis has equipped me with financial management skills. I advocate for disciplined budgeting and expanding revenue sources to stabilize the city's finances. With my experience as the governor's appointee to the San Francisco Bay Ferry and past president of the North Bay Division for Cal Cities, I have developed skills in advocating for regional and local interests, leveraging resources from state and federal governments. I am ready to hit the ground running and launch Vallejo to the next level as your mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Go for it.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Dwight Monroe Jr. I am running for Vallejo Mayor this upcoming November election, November 5th, 2024. And I'd also like to remind everybody that ballots just was mailed out this week, so be on the lookout for your mail-in ballot. Again, my name is Dwight Monroe Jr. Currently, I serve as the Vice Chair of the Economic Development Commission. I'm also a member of the Vallejo Police Chief Advisory Board. I serve as the President of Angels of Heart Nonprofit, Vice President at the Vallejo Naval and Historic Museum, and also an executive committee member for the NAACP local branch, Vallejo 1081. I am running for Vallejo Mayor because I am dedicated to improving the city of Vallejo. I've shown that constantly, consistently, relentlessly for the past 3-4 years, being an active member of this community, volunteering with several nonprofits such as Angels of Heart, Watch Me Grow, Faith Food Fridays, the list going on and on. The main thing we need to talk about as a community is public safety. It truly is the number one and first domino that we need to take care of in order to ensure our city a prosperous future. One of the main things that's been derailing our success here in the city is just bickering. And I really like the tone that was set this evening with the moderators explaining collaboration. So I would encourage everybody to continue to be involved. I truly thank you all for showing up tonight. I'm honored to be in your presence. And as your mayor of Vallejo, you can know that I will represent all of Vallejo, every single representation, every single person of the city of Vallejo. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Brothers and sisters of Mare Island and ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be here again after running for City Council from District 4 2 years ago. And I enjoyed this format here in Mare Island because this is like the second most favorite place for me in town. I'm here every day on weekends, on Saturday and Sunday on Mare Island, knowing the issues of Mare Island, the residents of Mare Island, the places to enjoy, jog, see the industry's progress, and families lead their lives. So I am running for mayor because of the similar frustrations and disappointments and changes that most of us wanted. I have assisted with 2 of the mayoral campaigns in the past and present, between 10 to 14 different council members' campaigns, a couple of supervisory campaigns and school board district campaigns, doing all of which I had a chance to observe and feel the concerns and anxieties of people, whether it's potholes or public safety issues or housing, etc. I have to go back and let people who do not know me well enough over the years. I graduated with a BS Science and BS Electrical Engineering degree from Bangalore University in India, and an MBA in Information Systems from University of Phoenix. And I worked in Phoenix and I moved to the Bay Area 34 years ago. And this evening, 26 years ago, I was celebrating my wedding, actually, wedding party. So, fast forward, coming from a family of electrical contractors, entrepreneurs, businessmen, and activists in the community, I grew up to develop my own brand of...
Thank you very much. We're going to stick to our 2-minute break. Thank you.
All right, hi everyone. My name is Andrea Source. It's great to see such a great turnout, so many people here. For those that don't know me, I'm an economics professor at Diablo Valley College. I have spent my entire career in public service. I have a background in public policy, a master's degree in public administration, and a deep fundamental belief that government can and should work for the people that it serves and be responsive to the people that it serves. When I got to Vallejo, I fell in love with this city for all the reasons I'm sure many of you love our city. And I got increasingly frustrated with the lack of responsiveness, the lack of inclusion, and the lack of accountability in our government. And I do think that a lot of the issues that we're facing is because of patterns of lack of accountability at all levels. And I decided to run for mayor with no political ambition beyond serving this community, because I think we need to make a change in the culture of how our city works. We need leaders who are going to take shared responsibility for our problems, who are going to bring people together, who aren't going to make excuses, but who are going to get to the table, acknowledge what we're facing, be truthful, honest, and transparent with the community, and come up with plans to get through it together and follow through on those plans. I haven't met a single person in this campaign that's happy with how the city's been run. Everybody loves Vallejo, but nobody's happy with the status quo here, and we've got to make a change. The change that I think we need to make is we need to get the special interests out. I'm not taking any money from PACs or developers or big businesses or anybody like that. We need a government that's going to fight for the people, and it's going to start with the culture that the mayor sets up top. And you know, for me, I think if we want things to change, we need to take that bold step. And what I'm offering is a leader with a track record of collaboration and service, a background in policy to be able to challenge the status quo, but also hit the ground running on the critical issues that we're facing here in Vallejo. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you, candidates, for your introductions. I think everyone now, for those of you who may not know anyone, you have a little snippet of who they may be. I'm sure they all have websites, information, so whatever question if you find yourself not having a question answered, I hope they'll linger and you can talk to them one-on-one, so there will be more time after this. We're gonna move into the formal questions now. And the first question has to do with Community Facilities District. That's a special tax. I just wanna see a show of hands if anyone is personally impacted by a CFD on Mare Island. Can you raise your hand? Okay, thank you. So for those of you who are unaware of a CFD, is typically cities use it as a tool. And when there's a lack of infrastructure normally, maybe there's underground sewer, water, something else, it's usually when there's aged infrastructure and the local municipality doesn't have the resources or isn't already prepared for growth. And so what ends up happening is it's a developer trick. So it's a way for developers to move their project forward by passing the cost on to the impacted folks in whatever that geographic region is. It happens all over. And so for Mare Island, there were CFDs put in place in order for this project to move forward. And so the first question has to do with that. The background is the unfairness and lack, I'm reading verbatim, the unfairness and lack of progress on CFD tax reform is a top issue for Mare Island stakeholders. The homeowners and business owners on Mare Island are burdened with an additional $2 million in CFD fees per year. This works out on average to homeowner paying $2,000 to $3,000 or $2,000 to $3,000 per year in additional taxes for fire and police services and for the operation and maintenance of the bridge causeway. For 20 years, the CFD ratepayers have been charged over $60 million in addition to their normal taxes just for fire and police services. So for those of you who aren't impacted, you don't have to worry about that. You just pay your tax bill when your supplemental taxes, you don't have to think about it. But on Mare Island, there's an extra burden. The question is, as mayor, would you support reducing or eliminating these taxes? And what specifically would you do towards that goal? You have 2 minutes each. So we'll start with do, and then we'll go down, and then we'll rotate. Please pay attention to your time in the back.
Thank you. So when the development was first developed, there was a promise made by the developer to the residents that this CFD would go away over time. And it was expected that it would be spread and shared over the full project, and that it would be spread quickly and sunset much faster than, as we know today, it has not. There definitely are some concerns in terms of what is being collected for. If there are funds sitting there that perhaps they are overcharging. And also the residents have always been required to pay the full amount. So instead of having it spread equally over the businesses. So I am in support of taking a look at the accounting to make sure that what's being collected for is appropriate, and if it's not, then it should be changed to reflect that and only charging what is appropriate. And then also as new development happens, and also looking at the existing leases that are happening right now, making sure that they are paying their fair share into the CFDs, and that it does get spread out as the new development is happening and reduced accordingly over time, and eventually as it would go away. Thank you.
Thank you for that question regarding the CFDs and how important it is to the residents here on Mare Island. Knocking on doors and actually just having a meeting with MISTEA last week, the leadership here on Mare Island. Just over the years, I've got to see so many community members come to City Council and express their frustrations about the CFDs, and I've just seen City Council essentially just ignore them, kind of kick the can down the road to the next council, to the next election season, to ask the next candidates what they're going to do about it. And the truth is, we really do need to hold the city accountable when it comes down to these CFDs, and it should be something that's not practiced. Just based off case study, quite honestly, what we're dealing with these CFDs is just under-promised and under-delivering. And also, paying for the bridge is just, it's atrocious, quite honestly. You guys should not be paying for that bridge knowing that the whole city of Vallejo is utilizing that bridge. But the CFDs, I've stand with you guys. I definitely will look to ways how we can improve the situation with the CFDs. I don't think that it's something that we can just totally eliminate immediately or in a rapid moment, but there are measures and ways that we can improve the CFD tax. $3,000 per family or per house is atrocious, just based off what they have not been, delivered, and that's public safety, resources, and then we also got the Mayoral specific plan that's kind of just overrunning, any thought of, the development that the CFDs were supposed to bring up. So let's not forget that. Let's hold each other accountable. Let's hold the city accountable. Let's speak to the finance director, Ms. Rika, and figure out where the CFD money really is going and how we can better utilize these funds.
Thank you.
Thank you for the great question. It's on the minds of pretty much everybody there. I own a home close to City Park for 21 years now, and I can't imagine if I had owned the same home on the island here that I would be paying those $3,000 to $5,000 extra dollars. It is not just a question of the amount, but it's also how long has this inequity existing, and it looks like there is no end in sight. So for me, both in the past couple of years ago and now, listening to some of the leaders who spoke eloquently at the City Hall, it is very obvious that we need to reduce as soon as possible, I would say the first term of the next mayor and next council, and then eliminate completely this inequity. There is no doubt in my mind at all. But the question of how would we make up for the money, there are homeowners and there are industries, and then the industries make a couple of million to hundreds of millions of dollars and stuff. So the inequity must be studied and proportionately divided, and I'm sure the residents will appreciate that, and then will have their life a little bit more convenient and comfortable. As a retiree, I relate to that myself, and with limited income and the other challenges that come in, we need to take care of this as one of the top priorities in the very first year. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so the moderator said it at the beginning, the implementation of the CFD is a developer tactic. This is a type of tax that benefits a developer, and as the residents here know, when Lennar built the homes, they put it in place to say, hey, we need you all to pay this extra tax until we develop enough to have enough of a tax base to fund the services for the island. So everybody got misled, and the developer didn't deliver. Lennar has since made hundreds of millions of dollars selling the South Island. One thing that I'm going to do as mayor, and I'll talk in a second about the actions that I think should be taken now, but I'll always be honest. And I've been very honest with the residents of Mare Island that I believe that the sale of North Mare Island was our best opportunity to phase out the CFD, and our leaders did not. That was the time when we had the leverage over the developer, and I was heartbroken. I spoke very fervently against that deal because I knew what was at stake, and I knew that once we sold that land, we would never get it back. And unfortunately now, Mare Island Company has a say over the CFD. They have to be at the table, and that's the excuse the city is giving you all, is that Mare Island Company has to approve of this, and they don't want to come to the table. So there's two things that I think we need to do. I am fully committed to getting this phased out for you all, and at the very least, working through it together and seeing the steps that we can take to get this taken care of as soon as possible. In addition to being an equity issue, it's an ethical issue, because as it's been mentioned, when you pay taxes, you expect services. And I think across the city of Vallejo, we're seeing that we're paying taxes and we're seeing the city waste, whether it's the CFD funds or ARPA, COVID relief fundings, we're seeing the waste, and it's an ethical issue that you're being forced to pay these taxes and you're not receiving the services. You're getting stuck in traffic across the causeway and wondering if you're going to be able to get emergency services. So the first thing that I want to do is an audit. I've talked about fiscal responsibility. We need an independent forensic audit of the budget, and that needs to be inclusive of the CFD and complement what you all have already done. And the second thing we need to do,
Thank you very much.
we need to bring all the stakeholders to the table and talk about this.
All right. One thing that would be helpful is we know some of you have your minds made up, but in order for us to get through, if you could just be a little tempered. I'm not saying don't clap for your favorite candidate, but we'll just be a little tempered, that's all. And I'll take that from whoever. But the next question has to do with the Connolly Street corridor. I'll give you the background. The question was, where is that? So, when Mare Island Company purchased North Mare Island in May 2022, they agreed to numerous conditions in the purchase agreement. One was the completion of the large Connolly Street corridor development project, which includes the coal sheds and which can be constructed under the existing specific plan. Would be finished with construction by 2027. This is only 3 years away. To date, no construction work has commenced on this project, and in fact, no formal plans have been submitted for review. As mayor, what would you do to ensure that Connolly Street corridor project is completed within this deadline? And we'll start with Mr. Monroe first.
Thank you for that question, sir. Well, the Connolly corridor is something that caught my attention when I, 2-3 years ago, when we first started looking at the Mare Island specific plan, and obviously that's the breaking point for the Mare Island specific plan. That is phase 1, including this establishment and just expanding further down the road here near Flagship. But if you drive to Connolly corridor right now, you will see that there is just nothing. I don't even think there's gates right there right now, but pretty much the city has just folded on this. There's no accountability. They signed this contract. Yes, when I was running for city council, I ran for city council in 2022, District 5. We were talking about the Connolly corridor and how it was going to do great things for the city of Vallejo, and how it was going to be the start of this expansion of the Mare Island and all this great development coming. But we've seen for 2+ years now, there is zero implementation of a plan. And as Mr. Landis just mentioned, they haven't even submitted the plan. So we still are unsure of a community what this Connolly corridor is even going to look like. Yes, they gave us a 9-phase plan, but if you don't have a timeline with concrete details that actually execute the plan, then we don't really have anything to go off as a community. So I do encourage, as mayor, I will definitely push that we get the Connolly corridor built immediately as soon as possible. But if we don't have a concrete deadline, I think it's something that we need to reconsider negotiating the contract and figuring out what are the right steps to actually build Mare Island. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. In a private industry, any of you guys work in the private industry, if there are deadlines, the Gantt charts, we discuss time versus activity, what needs to be completed, various stages, milestones of the project, and who is going to be completing it and by when, what happens if it doesn't meet the deadlines, and unforeseen circumstances, etc. But to hear and know that nothing has been done so far, a couple of years went by, that's a lot of time. And 2027, Landis is right, 2027 is almost there, 2 years after the next couple of months. So I would say the next council and the next mayor will have to look at it with a sense of urgency and see what can be done, like a little bit of a reverse engineering to see what we can do to catch up with a year or two. There is a deadline at some point beyond which it may not be possible. They may go on until about 2030. So when such a time frame is foreseen by the team that looks at it next year, we have to take action. So I would say the new city council will have to do anything and everything to push this forward and be accountable to the people and report back. Thank you.
Thank you.
So when the deal was finalized with the sale of North Mare Island, the deal was incredibly friendly to the developer and replaced a prior deal that would have had good development milestones and benchmarks. And the two things that city staff and the developer held out there as the potential good things about the deal were the Connolly Street project and the fact that they needed to start soil surcharging on the North Island. And I went up again, I went before City Council multiple times and I said, don't believe them. Once you sell this land, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. They're gonna sit on it and then let it appreciate, and they can make money, and there's no incentive for them to do anything. We don't see anything on Connolly Street right now, and we don't see any soil surcharging. I haven't seen anything on the North Island, have you all? They're not soil surcharging. So it's a shame. It's a shame that we're now dealing with this situation where we're a bit hamstrung by the limitations of this deal. The supposed clawback provisions with the requirement that the developer build Connolly Street. If you look at the fine print, the city can only reacquire the land with permission of the developer, paying a premium over what we got. We can't afford that. So we have to use the leverage that we do have. And like I said, I'll always be honest. I want to stop the excuses. I want to stop the excuses, and I want to stop settling for excuses from our developers, because that's what we're hearing right now from Mare Island Company, is we're hearing, well, we don't want to do Connolly Street until we finish the specific plan. Well, as it was mentioned by the moderator, the Connolly Street project, the whole purpose of Connolly Corridor was that it can be done within the existing specific plan. So let's see some action on that before we start approving the new specific plan, which, when we re-entitle the land in that new specific plan, will net Mare Island Company tens, if not hundreds of $1 million in appreciation and profit. That's our leverage. That's our leverage over the CFD. That's our leverage over Connolly Corridor. It's not great leverage, but it's what we've got. So we need to show and enforce that we see progress on these projects before we start going and re-entitling their land to great profits for the developer. And we need to make sure that the city isn't a barrier to doing that.
Thank you. So good news, I actually happened to be at City Hall about a week ago when they were submitting the plans for the Connolly Street project, so they have been submitted, just so you know. And that is going to rehab all of the coal sheds, filling them with experiential retail, food and beverage, makerspace type businesses. The back parking lot will be converted, half of it, you won't lose any of your needed parking, Ken, to an outdoor amphitheater event space, a dog park bar concept, a children's park, rehabbing all of Connolly Street and the buildings on Connolly Street, filling those with their headquarters, and then residential high-density housing at the termination of Connolly Street at Azuar. And we do have leverage on the North Island. So when we did that disposition agreement, we did say that if they did not perform on their timelines and their expectations, we could take back that property for the $3 million that they paid for it, plus any verified out-of-pocket hard costs that they actually paid. Not any appreciation, no equity, no soft costs, just the actual out-of-pocket costs they have paid. And I absolutely intend to hold them accountable to that. They're also due to submit the entire specific plan this month. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move on to question 3, which has to do with the new site specific plan. And we'll start with Mr. Schenker. You'll be the first to answer. In the same North Mare Island purchase agreement, the Mare Island Company committed to submitting a new site-specific plan for the entirety of the island by October 2024. To date, well, it sounds like that's been changed, right? Yeah, we'll ask. I'll keep going. To date, the only part of the proposed specific plan to be presented to the public is a draft land use plan, which envisioned over 13,000 dwelling units, which the timeline for phase development extending beyond 2050. What is your perspective on the draft use plan?
Thank you. First and foremost, I will have to say, very sadly and disappointed, either a 4-3 or a 5-2 vote by which they sold the North Island property for $3 million. Like, it is just so unbelievable. I felt the entire city of Vallejo taxpayers have been cheated and let down by the entire council, especially the ones who voted to support that. Secondly, I will have to say that the current final plan, we all went through the draft plan part, right? Many of us attended the public hearing meetings, and I recall listening to the with various details given to the 9-phase 30-year plan that will start taking shape in the coming months, beginning next year, provided the specific plan is approved. But if the starting of the plans for, I'm sorry, what am I saying? If the specific plan is waiting for this current draft, I think everything is going to be delayed significantly, and I think we can't afford that. And we don't want any repetition of the $3 million sale of the North Mainland property. Thank you.
Thank you.
So as I mentioned earlier, I think the specific plan is where we have leverage. And I do want to clarify one thing about the $3 million purchase price for the North Island. The city had to pay about, I think it was about $2.3 million of that for remediation. Still existing loans and costs for remediation. So the city actually only netted about $700,000. And if the city tries to claw back the North Island per the contract, we would have to not only come up with that excess, that $3 million, but I believe it also requires permission from the developer. The developer has to agree to sell the land back. So it's not a great clawback provision. The specific plan it's an interesting dilemma that we're in, because like I said, it's our main source of leverage to enforce development on the island, and it's also an incredible benefit for the developer when that specific plan gets approved and that land gets entitled. It increases in value tremendously, and if there's nothing in the deal to enforce them to develop, they can push the specific plan through with all of these lofty promises for development, just like we saw with Lennar, and not execute on any of them. So I really think we need to take this process very seriously and very carefully. I'd like to see a task force put together with businesses and residents and stakeholders related to Mare Island. I'd like to see a really thoughtful process of community engagement and not rush the specific plan, because again, this could be our one opportunity to try to enforce some development on the island, but it could also be another gift to out-of-state billionaires. And I've had really honest conversations with Mare Island company leaders that I don't think they're a bad developer. It's not that I don't like them, it's that I know their incentives. And they're billionaires out of Tennessee. And I don't trust them to act in the best interest of Vallejo. So when we think about the specific plan, we cannot rush it. We need community engagement. And I would like to see investment dollars and development from Mare Island companies, soil surcharging and Connolly Street, before we approve that specific plan, so that they can show good faith and come to the table for the CFD as well, so that they show good faith that they care about this community and they intend to do good work. They also need to submit an entire island-wide master plan as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned earlier, the specific plan is due to be turned in this month, and from all reports that I have heard from both the city and from the developer, they are on track to be on time with that submission. It is an opportunity to strengthen contracts and make sure that we are continuing to involve the community in that process. They have had a really robust process, and they intend to continue to do that. I also want to say that there still is performance evaluations in there, so that we can take back the property if they are not performing. We did make that very strong. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Landis. Yes, for the specific plan, I actually, after listening to the specific plan, the full phase, 9-phase specific plan, months ago at the Vallejo Naval and Historic Museum, I remember they came and presented, and many of you were in the crowd. You know, I was quite eager to see their plans, but however, I've also seen that the process has already been delayed with the Connolly corridor. So how much can we really trust that they're gonna not ask for an extension any day now? I hear that the plans are being submitted, but we've seen how things are working in this city, especially when somebody has a little bit too much tie with our government. They start to get extensions, all sorts of different things that just continue to delay progress here in our city. So we really got to start making sure that we get more community outreach. Mare Island Company, you're doing great. You're reaching out to the community, but make sure you're reaching out to the whole city of Vallejo, and not just the folks on Mare Island, because we all have a say what happens in the city of Vallejo, and Mare Island is a part of the city of Vallejo. We got to stop creating this distinction of Mare Island and Vallejo. this is Vallejo. So we all have a say in this, and I think the Mare Island Company could do a little bit better, maybe reaching out to the full city of Vallejo. I've seen they had the event at the museum, that was great. But more community outreach, more diversity, because this Mare Island specific plan is talking about mixed housing. You're talking about different families moving to, not just to Vallejo, but to the Mare Island, and want to, be in all this development and be in this greatness that's supposed to be happening here on the island. So we got to make sure we're reaching out to the full community of Vallejo. And with that, I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask a follow-up question because we're going to change gears altogether. For your follow-up question, you have 1 minute to answer. And so when I was on the Planning Commission, Lennar came before us every year for a report. Now, I wasn't in city government when that deal was put in place, but I am a developer, so this is what I do. And developers do lie. We don't lie, but developers do lie, really. There are some really good developers, and there are some that just want money. I say that because when they're going through the negotiation process, they may start off with all the leverage because they have all the data, all the numbers, they've done extensive due diligence, and they come into a city like Vallejo who has tremendous turnover at City Hall, so therefore we may not have a lot of sophistication. And then we're easy to be taken advantage of. So the follow-up question is, because Lennar never gave me satisfactory answers to why they couldn't perform. They just had no answer. So if the North Mare Island Company is unable to perform, what will be your course of action? Do you understand the question? Okay, we can start at Ms. Source.
Yeah, this is tough.
1 minute.
Yeah, this is tough. So I'll go ahead and say the elephant in the room that many of you all know. My husband was one of the negotiators in the North Mare Island deal. And he and his colleague were negotiating a deal that would have benefited our community, had a long-term lease that incentivized the developer to build on the south in order to get rights for the north. They found out that the then city manager, Greg Nyhoff, had been having secret meetings with the developer out in Tennessee. And they lived in Vallejo and they had a duty to report. And they blew the whistle to city council members and said, hey, the city manager's doing something crooked. And instead of investigating it, they colluded and retaliated against the whistleblowers and pushed through this worst deal. I'm heartbroken by this question because I don't know that there's much that we can do. I will do everything that I can. I will do everything that I can to enforce performance. I'll use the specific plan. I'll use all the leverage that we have. I'll work with the residents, the businesses, but like I said, you can't put that genie back in the bottle, and we should have learned from Lennar. It's unacceptable that folks voted this through, knowing what Lennar did to this city, that we went and sold that island again. It's absolutely heartbreaking to me.
Yeah, so, it's been a challenge looking at all of the different development projects in our town. We have, for example, on North Mare Island, just the underground infrastructure alone will cost $30 million to bring it up to standards. We have liquefaction. We now have sea level rise that has increased in severity and projected cost to overcome. And we know all of this because we got all of that data from Mare Island Company, and before that Faraday Future when they were looking to do a development, and before that Toro. So we have gotten more information about how we can move forward with more development, and like I said already, we will hold them accountable for moving forward on their performance timelines, and if they don't, we will exercise our rights to buy back that property. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that follow-up question. Yeah, so what I would do as mayor, I would advocate relentlessly on behalf of the city of Vallejo, quite honestly. The residents of Vallejo, we deserve everything that the Mare Island Company is promising. We deserve it, and we need to hold them accountable and make sure that it comes to fruition. But one thing that I know legally is that I would have to work very closely with the city manager and also the city attorney to figure out what are the actual real steps to get this done. We can just talk about it up here if we want to, but you got to sit down with the subject matter experts and figure out what the real solution is, and then we can move forward. And also, in example, we need to make sure that the mayor is leading the council and we're a collective voice together so we can all be on the same page, so it's not a 4-3 or a 5-2, it's a 7-0, all representing the city of Vallejo, because that's the ultimate goal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. On a similar question in the past one or two candidate forums, I recall giving an example popular in the Eastern cultures. That is something like a fence is built in a farm to protect the crop and the animals. What if the fence at night goes and eats all the crops and the animals? It's like, you've been duped during the night, and how dare we put ourselves out there with all the lessons learned or caution to be duped again during the daytime. So I would say, with the united effort of the entire council, that's where the mayor leads aggressively in the best interest of the entire city, and really take all the necessary, any and all action to make sure that we don't get exploited again. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, you can pass the mic down. You'll get a fresh 2-minute start because you had to follow. So we're going to move to public safety. Okay. The background. The city has endured decades of staffing shortages for both police and fire departments. A primary citizen concern is obviously the unacceptable occurrences of lawlessness that threaten the lives and property of everyone who lives here. What are your plans to ensure Mare Island and Vallejo are a safe place to live, work, and play? And what role do you think neighborhood watch programs might play in making the city safer?
All right, thanks. So this is probably the biggest issue facing our city. We're in a complete crisis. And this is not a crisis that started overnight. This is a crisis that's been brewing for decades because of the misconduct in our police department, the lack of accountability for the misconduct, the cover-ups of the misconduct, a reputation that prevented us from attracting, recruiting, retaining officers, as well as a reputation that deteriorated trust in the community and made it really difficult for good officers to do their jobs. And the problems, I mean, for me, it's a very clear pattern of officials, again, covering up misconduct, not taking the courageous choices, and the situation that we're in currently is a result of that. So what do we do now? Well, unfortunately, because of the inability of the city to reform, we've been sued by the State Department of Justice, which imposed a consent decree to compel reforms of the Vallejo Police Department. And we're at such critical understaffing that folks, not just on Mare Island, but on the mainland, don't trust that they can call 911 and actually get a response if something happens to them. So we have to be able to simultaneously address both of those issues, and this is something that I'm taking very seriously and that I'm doing my research and my due diligence now to make sure that I've got a plan on day one. I've been meeting with folks with law enforcement backgrounds, my colleagues at DVC who teach administration of justice, former officers, to figure out how do we create the conditions where we can reform the department and staff up with good officers while also getting reinforcements in place to help us get these response times down in the short term, especially again with Mare Island with some of the issues I was talking about before with the causeway. We need to make sure we can get emergency services out here. So I mentioned the state DOJ because the state knows we have a problem. I'm calling the governor's office. I'm asking for patrol from CHP. We're going to try to get reinforcements from the sheriff, and I'm going to create an interagency task force of law enforcement from federal down to local so that we can meet regularly and ensure that we're collaborating to address our most pressing problems, one of which is response time. I didn't get to neighborhood watch, I'm sorry. I tried.
Thank you.
Yeah, so one of the reasons I ran for council to begin with was because I had a very dangerous situation in my own neighborhood. And I got to understand what happens logistically when you don't have enough officers to respond to calls for service that aren't priority one, like active shooting, somebody is being physically hurt in that moment. And so, we were just coming out of bankruptcy and we had to be very focused on public safety and disciplined with our spending to make sure that we were rebuilding our department. And so by doing that, we went from 71 officers to 137. In that time, we also learned that we needed to start doing some work around reform. And we began instituting different reform initiatives. Also, at the same time, I was chair of the Public Safety Policy Committee for the League of California Cities, which is made up of mayors and council members from every city across the state. And we were able to work with our state legislators to move forward with a decertification process that defined 9 different areas of serious misconduct and allowed community members to refer officers for decertification to be investigated by the Commission on Post Standards. And that is in effect today. We currently have almost 400 calls for service per day. We have 3 to 4 officers on any given shift. Clearly, that is not sufficient. We have officers that are working 16-hour shifts, and they have an average of 4 years in the industry experience. We have to work with our sheriff. Like I said, he has submitted a proposal to increase staffing to the city, and it is up to the current council to negotiate and approve that contract. I have already met with Caltrans, who also works with CHP. Next year, they are going to be doing a complete street project for Sonoma Boulevard, and there are some overlapping issues that we can work on together. And they would love to have an agreement with the mayor's office, the city, CHP, and Caltrans. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Landis. Priorities, it has to be public safety. And, you know, we had a meeting at Glencoe about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and it was unfortunate. We were talking about public safety, and then, you know, somebody got robbed on camera, and it kind of went viral all over Vallejo. So public safety is needed in areas where you think it might not be on, you know, on a more common basis. When I was walking neighborhoods one day, somebody was telling me there was a car flipped over and left for about 6 hours. I'm pretty sure all you guys know the story. Sound like everybody knew about what was going on there. But those sorts of things, they need to be prioritized, especially when you're paying for CFDs and you're paying extra funds. I'm not saying you should have VIP service to the cops, but there should be some better incentives of paying these CFDs and making sure that you are, it's like, you know, you got your highest paying customers in the building. You want to make sure you're taken care of. That's really a priority for me. But we need a cultural change at BPD. And one of the things that I have plans for is making sure that we actually deliver on building a new police station, because it is one of the main things that's stopping recruitment and retention here in the city of Vallejo. We currently have less than 40 cops on the street and 0 traffic division. So if you can see the people running red lights and doing donuts and everything else, it's because we are just lacking in these critical areas. So the city VPD is having to make very crazy decisions where they're only able to tackle priority 1 concerns, meaning somebody's getting shot, robbed, literally a murder, a armed robbery, things like that, to that nature. So priority 2 and priority 3 calls are being on the back burner right now, but those are some of the most critical calls as well, because you got cars sitting out there for 6 hours creating a public safety issue.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. This is truly an extremely challenging question and a concern for the whole community. This is nothing new, as most of us acknowledged earlier. I served twice, 2 terms under 2 police chiefs in the Police Advisory Board, hoping to learn exactly how some of the day-to-day operations go on in the police department, how calls get answered, how emergency shootings get addressed, and what citizens and neighborhood watch groups can work together to make it a little bit better, a little bit safer for everybody. I don't claim to be an expert in this field at all. As mayor, I would count very heavily on the police chief. We pay them quite well, and we count on their expertise, their training, and to help and work with the entire community to bring better solutions and safety to the whole community. There are other agencies out in the county and the state, perhaps, that are available to collaborate. And then most of the cities around Vallejo, 3 to 5 of them are within reachable distance, etc. So if there is a collaboration between each of these entities on true emergencies, maybe they can provide some better safety during the normal challenges. I would also look at the attitude, that I saw, in my words, I saw a lot of milking the system, as we say, by some of the police officers. And to hear that we don't have enough money, we don't have enough budget, we don't have enough staff, over and over, mayor after mayor, council after council, is not a good excuse. It is not a responsible way of handling and providing what they are paid for. So they will have to look at this critically. Thank you.
We're going to change gears, but I just wanted to comment just one more on public safety. For those of you who are really, really concerned about this topic, I would highly recommend that you do police ride-alongs. When I rode the different shifts with fire, and I had no prior relationship with them, but I was interested because I heard all the rhetoric, and I read the news, and I saw the crime, and I heard the debates. I wanted to go find out for myself. So I rode different shifts with police, I rode different shifts with fire, and it gave me a deeper understanding of what aspects that we do here are accurate and what things that are systemic that we as a community, if we're better informed, we will be able to hold city council a little bit more accountable. The other thing is the city budget is a public document. And so when we talk about taxes and funding and equipment and resources, take the time and synthesize that. And if for those of you who may not have strong financial, get a CPA, sit in a room, get a group together, go through the city budget, do the ride-alongs, and then you really will be in a position to hold the policymakers accountable. But that's just my 2 cents. All right, for the unhoused. We're gonna move on to the unhoused. Let's see who's back. We're gonna start at the end and come back down this way. Let's see how many, 1, 2. Well, yeah, we'll start with Ms. Source. Okay, unhoused, background. Oh no, you did the first one last time, right? Okay, we'll come back to here. That's not fair to you. Okay, background on the unhoused. Vallejo has been arguably one of the worst cities in the Bay Area where lack of managing camping in public areas cause significant visual blight from accumulated garbage and other wastes, as well as threats to public health and the environment due to the lack of sanitation facilities. This has also hampered economic development, yet the unhoused have to go somewhere and be treated with dignity. But the question is, what are your ideas and plans to address this complex issue?
Thank you. So while we were on council, or while I was on council, we did approve 3 different projects, 2 that are permanent supportive housing, one on Sacramento Street, which is 174 beds, and then on Broadway, which will be 48 beds. And then the transitional housing, the Navigation Center on Broadway Street, which I believe is about 200 beds, and that is getting people off of the streets and into stable environments where they can navigate them into permanent supportive housing. Permanent supportive housing, by the way, is where you get folks into a stable environment and then provide the full wraparound services like mental health support, substance use counseling, and career skills development training. And I will also share that since I've been off of council, I have facilitated relationships with private property owners directly with the county. And just over the last year, they have helped a little over 100 individuals move out of encampments, off of the streets, and into stable housing, provided the full wraparound services, and 20% of them have successfully transitioned into independent living on their own. And none of that costs the city anything. So from my perspective, we need to create more solutions like that, have more collaboration with private partners and public partners, and making sure that we are looking at all of those kinds of opportunities where we can help people clean our streets and at the same time save our budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for this question. It's very personal to me, myself. I dealt with a little bit of unhoused when me and my wife, when we first got engaged. A little bit of disruption in our life, and we had to find a way to make it. We made our way to Kentucky and Napa, and we've been stabilized ever since, so I'm thankful. But the Navigation Center it needs to happen. It gotta happen very, very soon. And I'm seeing mixed results on this. When the study first came out, or when they first started talking about the Navigation Center, they said it was gonna be over 150 beds supplied for residents. I just seen something posted the other day where it said 125. So we really need to make sure when the city's putting out information, they're staying on the same page. We got to figure out what are the real facts. But the bottom line is we have 1,700 unhoused members of this community according to the point in time count that was just recently done. So 150 beds, what is that really gonna do? Ms. Du, she talked about almost 200 beds for the housing projects that were just done, but how many of those people are the people sleeping on Couch Street? Were the people outside where these housing projects were supposed to be intended for the people sleeping on the streets in Vallejo? And what I'm seeing is people that were not on the streets of Vallejo are now in these apartments, and it's not doing anything. The numbers continuing to grow. So we're at 1,700 right now, so 150 beds is not gonna do anything. Expanding the navigation center before it gets built is the #1 plan that I think we need to start looking into. We need to make innovative ways, innovative solutions to make sure we get that number to at least 250, because it's obviously not going to do anything to the city of Vallejo. And then we got to make sure we're doing a better job of community outreach, actually touching people where they are, making sure that they actually have the capability to fill out these applications and the resources to fill out these applications, because if they don't, they're going to stay on those streets.
Thank you. So this issue that really stirs our conscience and makes us sad and sometimes helpless has 2 or 3 dimensions for me. One, as an individual involved in helping the homeless from the time I moved to the Bay Area back in the 1990s. Volunteer once a week, down to once a month, whatever I could, to learn and know and do my part. With my neighborhood watch group and being a standby person for a couple of years when the late Maria Guevara was heading her efforts actively in town, I was involved and I was able to provide basic assistance in my own way. And as a homeowner here, sometimes people come and ask me, and I do what I can, bringing them a little bit of lunch or clothing, or taking them to my place and have them take a shower and then give them a ride, things like that. At a bigger level, bigger picture, there are 3 to 6 different entities, nonprofits, that are actively doing this without the help of the city, and they are doing everything they can from their faith base or from their goodness of the heart. I would join all those kind of efforts to bring furthermore compassion and help, so that while the city and the authorities or the county is figuring it out, how do we solve this problem for 1,700 or 2,000 people? That's a daunting problem. Not all of them can be done right away. As mayor, as a United Council, next year I would bring or think of projects in all the 6 districts in the next couple of years, so that it can bring in a few more housing opportunities for people who need them. And there are other solutions, perhaps we can talk. Thank you.
Thank you.
So this is another critical issue that we're facing, and I think the one thing we can all agree on is that what the city has been doing is not working. And the theme that I want to hit on is really mismanagement and waste. The 3 projects that were mentioned earlier, I actually see those as pretty disastrous, because all 3 of those projects went over timeline and over budget. The Sacramento Street project that's now Blue Oak Landing, the city of Vallejo had to pay $2.5 million back to HUD, back to the federal government, because of mismanagement of that grant, and there was no accountability for that. So then when the city went forward on the Broadway project, the same people were in charge of that project, and we went over budget again. A budget ballooned from $9 million to $27 million, and then it came out recently that the staff had been covering up the fact that we ran out of money, stiffed our contractors, and had a mechanics lien put on the property. So that cost us another $1.4 million. Then the city broke ground on the navigation center after funneling money from the navigation center into the Broadway project, so the navigation center was unfunded. So the first thing to do is to stop making bad decisions, to stop breaking ground on unfunded projects, and the second step, hold some people accountable so we find out what happened. I'm not saying people need to get fired, I'm just saying we need to know what happened so it doesn't happen again. And then we need to look at data and evidence-based approaches. I've been an advocate for safe camping and parking zones because this has worked in neighboring cities, Martinez, Fairfield, Novato, Santa Rosa, all around us. We've seen success. And I'm going to run out of time, but I'm happy to speak with people more about what that looks like. I'm also really eager to work with Cassandra James, who's going to be our new supervisor at the county level. She ran on getting Vallejo its fair share from the county. And we're going to work, not just she and I together, but with our new state senator, Chris Cabaldon, with federal elected officials, with Congressman Garamendi, to make sure we're bringing resources to Vallejo. The governor of California just has announced another round of state home key funds. So we can get funding for projects, but we need to make sure that when we do get that funding, we manage it correctly and that we find out what went wrong in those previous ones, so we don't just keep throwing good money at bad ideas and we actually get some progress on these issues.
Thank you. We're almost done with the formal questions. We may have time for some audience questions. I think if you haven't filled out a card, please do so. We're going to move on to City Hall. The background: economic development at City Hall relative to peer Bay Area cities has been anemic, in part because City Hall has been a revolving door and morale has been low. There also seems to be miscommunication and tension between City Council, City Manager, and staff. Before I answer the question, we have a City Manager form of government, right? So the City Manager is the CEO. The City Council has an equal vote, but the City Manager runs the city and has the authority to run the city. City Council has 2 employees, the City Manager and the City Attorney. There are other cities like San Francisco, Oakland, New York, Chicago, where there's an executive mayor who has the power to hire and fire the entire city staff, right? So being in this type of government, the mayor's office can be influential or it cannot be. So I just want to set the context for the question. First, share with us your perspective on the role and responsibilities of the City Council vis-a-vis the City Manager and City staff, and how would you use your office to change the culture and productivity of City Hall?
Thank you so much for the question. Yes, so the role of the City Council is very vital to the city, and as a newly district elected City Council and Mayor, form of government, I find it to be very distinguished because you really need to get to know your council member and also, of course, the mayor, so you can get a better kind of trust and better sense of how the city operates and how everything is working. Now, as far as gaining that trust with the city manager and, of course, the other department heads like the city attorney and everybody else that you need to get along with, you need to come in and work as a team player. And of course, understanding the complex issues that all city councilors, deal with on a daily basis, getting so much different chatter from different residents, and you truly just can't please everybody. So you really have to take that in mind and try to be as fair as you can. But at the end of the day, as mayor, I look to unify the council. I look to end all these 4-3 votes, the 5-3 votes, the just negativeness that's just continue to stagnate progress here in the city. We need to make sure that the overall goal is you guys, the residents of the city of Vallejo. I'm sorry, fly got on me. That's the #1 goal, is making sure we're advocating on a daily basis for the residents of Vallejo, and I'm talking about all residents of Vallejo. And truly, with this style of government, with the city manager making sure that he's pretty much the CEO, our job is to get information, retain information from the community, decipher that information amongst ourselves as council members and mayor, relay that information back to the city manager so that we can have the same, it can reflect. One of the main topics he talked about was economic development. If you are not aware, that's been the #1 goal for the city council for the past 2 to 3 years. I've been asking residents of the city of Vallejo, are you seeing that reflecting? Thank you.
Thank you. Having seen a lot of transition in the last year or two, we had interims and deputies and a couple of similar titles that I can't remember. Too many of them, both in city manager's office, the police chief, police office, information PIOs. A lot of the transition, what it tends to do is to make what things are obvious to people like us not so obvious to some of the others, because we saw on the sitting at the city council, things that were so obvious to people, citizens, the taxpayer, not being so obvious to some of the city council members, because some of them, I don't know if you remember, kept asking, I want more information, I want more data, there's not enough information, etc. And there were others who apparently did not have enough support or time enough to go through the seriousness of those issues, because they had one foot in the city council and one foot in their career in their job, saying that it doesn't pay enough and there is not enough time. Well, that may be true. They need to have whatever it takes for them to earn their livelihood and support them, but they have no business in delivering compromised public service for what the oath of office was and their fiduciary duty was. So I would say, as a leader, I will set example by doing, as Dwight often says, boots on the ground kind of deal, all hands on deck, as we say in America. Doing by example. Servant leadership is something that's very dear to me. It is not servant as in slave, but servant as in service to people, service to fellow human beings, etc. I'm deeply inspired by our 39th president, Jimmy Carter, who turned 100 years last week, and I'm deeply inspired by her leadership. Thank you.
This really hits on why I decided to run for office, because culture is really everything, and I think there's two things we need to fix. We need to fix the city council, and we need to fix the accountability of the city staff, because it's the city council's responsibility to set direction and manage the performance of a professional city manager and a professional city attorney. So the first thing that needs to happen is there actually does need to be performance management of that city manager and city attorney, and when there is wrongdoing, there is proper independent investigation and there's accountability. There's accountability for delivering on timelines and specific projects. If you look at the staff presentations from, say, 2018 to now on economic development, it's basically all the same stuff. One project has broken ground and there's been some land sales, but we haven't actually really seen anything happen, and that's because there just hasn't been accountability. That accountability can only come from a city council that's independent and responsive to the community, and I think the change that needs to happen in city council is we need to get the special interests out. If you have a PAC, like a Jumpstart, that consolidates all the special interests in a community, your businesses, your big developers, your all of labor, and every single PG&E and all these folks, and that basically just consolidates power in the city, there's no check and balance. Because you have a majority of your city council that's responsive to those folks that donated to them, and that's a big reason why I'm running and not taking money from special interests, because we need that full independence in our decision making, so you can trust, not just that we have the transparency and open session, so that you can trust when city council goes behind closed doors and does these performance reviews and contracts and land deals, that we've got councils that are acting in our best interest. And the example that I would give here, VMT and Orsum. This was a project that was opposed by a vast majority of our community, and the principals of VMT are now convicted felons for bribing public officials. These were contributors to Jumpstart, and they're still operating illegally on the waterfront. So we got to get all of that out to change the culture in our city.
So if you really want to make a difference with the community as a mayor, as a council, you have to create a vision that inspires and unifies. You have to do something above and beyond just the daily, saying we're gonna look at everything and we're gonna make sure we're doing better. People need to believe in something bigger. For example, here's an opportunity. When I was on the Solano Transportation Authority, one of their committees, I saw a map of the rail proposals for Solano County. And the one city that was cut off of that map, that has no passenger rail going to it at that point in time, was Vallejo. We are the largest city in the Bay Area that has no passenger rail. Can you imagine what would happen to our community if we were cut off of that map? We have an opportunity right now to connect with the SMART train, which would go to American Canyon, Napa Juncture, and connect directly to our ferry terminal. Of all of the spurs proposed, that has the highest ridership potential. If we do that, just by prioritizing it, because it's going to take a long time, it takes a lot of money, and it will take a lot of collaboration from federal and state and regional governments to be able to make that happen. But by prioritizing that, that unlocks state and federal dollars for high-density, residential, mixed-use, transit-oriented development for our waterfront and our downtown. And if we couple that with an enhanced infrastructure financing district, which allows us to raise more revenues without increasing taxes on our residents or our businesses, we have the ability to really make something unique and special for our community. And that's how you actually get and retain high-quality employees, because they want to go to work at an agency that is looking to do something special. And I know that we want to do something special in this community. Thank you.
Thank you. How many question cards do we have?
I guess they'd be so excited to be participating.
We have 5? Yeah, so we don't have time to get through the last question with enough time because I don't want to eat away from your questions, which are important. So we're going to pause. Okay, so we're going to just have a 1-minute pause so you can get a drink of water or whatever to catch your breath. For you though, I just want to, you should just give yourselves a round of applause for being civically engaged. My work takes me all over the state of California on a weekly basis inside different cities. Vallejo is one of the most active and engaged civic cities I've ever been in. And it's the thing that can continue to propel Vallejo forward is you showing up for these type of forums. So I just want to let you give yourselves a round of applause. Okay, we have audience questions. We have 1 minute each to answer the question. Thank you to the timekeeper. And as a matter of fact, that's a good. Can everyone who participated in organizing this just stand up or wave your hand so the audience can give you a round of applause? Because you didn't have to do this. You showed up because you can. Okay, I'm sorting through this because I'm not going to call out any individual candidate. I want to make sure they're general questions, so just give me a moment.
So you can't follow with any funding, stock funding. Give a second. Funding.
Funding?
Yeah.
Did you write it down?
There's a couple of them, yeah.
Okay, let me get through them. So just so you know, I'm very transparent. So I have certain questions that are directed to one candidate only, or another question that's directed to some and not all, and I think we want universal questions. So that's what I'm sorting through. Here's a public safety question. It's a universal question. Police officers are leaving Vallejo for Napa County, the Sheriff's Department, other local agencies in the area for better pay, better work conditions for different reasons. Why should officers stay at Vallejo PD, and how will you retain existing officers? And I'll rephrase you to how would the city retain existing officers? So we'll start with Mr. Mayoral. 1 minute each.
Thank you for that question. So I currently serve on the Vallejo Police Chief Advisory Board, and I was eager to join that board to get a better understanding and better knowledge of what are the day-to-day challenges and complexities that the city of Vallejo and VPD face. And obviously staffing is one of the major things. But one thing I've been telling people, would you rather play for the A's or the Giants? You know, it's that simple. People have options. And we're lacking on delivering on Even good bathrooms. I'm hearing complaints about OSHA in the bathrooms being bad at BPD. So, we have real issues to address. And what I've been telling people, if this city wants safety, we're gonna have to put it in the voters' hands and really demand that we have an urgent plan for safety. And my plan, of course, I've talked about it numerous times. I want to create a bond measure to get a new police department here in the building. I know this crowd probably don't want to hear about more taxes, but what I'm telling people is safe cities invest in safety. Thank you.
Thank you. This is truly a big challenge. And serving on the Police Advisory Board for 4 years, I did meet excellent, dedicated police officers like Sergeant Brenton Garrick, Captain Whitney, John Whitney, and Deputy Gomez, who was working with our Neighborhood Watch group to handle the Sonoma Boulevard problems in a very effective way. And before he could get a chance to prove his actions that will bring results, there seemed to be a mystery announcement in the paper, and we see people leave. So I'm puzzled, and as your leader, I will have to depend very heavily on the community, the neighborhood watch, and the police experts in the field, and expect that people will step up. Thank you.
So, in addition to the reputation issues with the department, we've had an interim chief for 2 years. So if we're thinking about attracting and retaining folks, we got to get a good, community-minded, reformed chief in place who has the respect of both the officers and the community, and we can recruit to that new vision. That's got to be the tactic that we use to recruit and retain. We also need reinforcements for our existing officers who are trying to do good work and are burning out because of the lack of staffing, and that's where CHP and the sheriff and other sources come in the short term. But we need to be implementing community policing, doing real work to rebuild trust. I didn't get to the question earlier about neighborhood watch, but that's a big part of this. Let's get officers out of the community. Let's rethink what policing, what law enforcement looks like in the 21st century. And the city council and the city manager need to have the back of the chief. Chief Shawnee Williams was trying to implement reforms and was pushed out because of hostility and threats that frankly were quite alarming. So we've got to have this new chief's back. I'll be the first one out there recruiting to that new vision, because we can really create something special here if we do things right and we take the necessary steps.
Yeah, so I actually I do go on ride-alongs fairly regularly. It is a great idea to see what's really happening out there and what our men and women out there in the field are doing and dealing with. I will share that when I went on a ride-along in December of last year, we had to respond to a sideshow, surprise, and we knew it was about 200 cars. We needed to call for backup. We called for Napa, American Canyon, Solano County Sheriffs, Cal Maritime, and ended up even including Benicia because the sideshow moved that way. 2 of the officers that responded from Napa had been with Vallejo. We had invested a ton of money in training them, and they had left. And then I went on a ride-along in July, shortly after we approved a new contract, which gave them an increase in pay. And those 2 officers came back. So we retained that investment that we had lost. We should also be looking at a retention and recruitment package where our existing officers, if they refer other officers to our agency, we give them a bonus as well as the new officers. That way we can rebuild faster. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to stay in this similar vein of public safety. Here's another question. Vallejo has been known to be the city with so much potential. What are your realistic action plans to switch the narrative from potential to progress? Please speak specifically about safety, cleanliness, prostitution on Sonoma Boulevard, and bringing businesses to downtown, both sides of the waterfront. So it's kind of, if there's some public safety, there's some economic development. And so, Mr. Shanker-Sharp. We have time for 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. That's a loaded question, and I'll try to do my best to recall which one, popcorn, back and forth. Public safety-wise, we will have to look at lessons learned and the DOJ obligations and using multiple resources, county-wise, CHP, and local experts, retired officers, and strengthened with neighborhood watch, etc. I think the citizens and their awareness and their proactive participation will affect a lot in how results are brought in reality to every challenge. As far as the Sonoma Boulevard challenge, and it makes all of our hearts really sink and feel very sad. It could be any of our sisters, daughters, and nieces, and to see all of them engage in activities that they do is very sad. It's a reflection on the entire society and what have we come to. With all the prosperity, all the global strength, and the advanced society that we are, we haven't been able to do much. But thinking on that, sometimes the thought that occurs to me more is like, as an economic professor, demand and supply. I feel that there must be some people in Vallejo who really are catering to this activity and business. And some of our neighborhood watch groups captured a few pictures of city employees really soliciting. And then that's another example. What if it exists right here among us and we are in denial of that, and we will have to do only as a collective community to address it and minimize it. Thank you.
So this is another great question because I think we're all tired of hearing about the city's potential. And for me, it kind of connects back to what I was saying earlier about getting special interest out and having leaders who are going to stand up for our community. We, coming out of the naval-based closure and the bankruptcy, I think there were a lot of outsiders that kind of came in like vultures and took advantage of Vallejo. And our leaders were scared because of the position we were in and didn't want to miss an opportunity, and we got taken advantage of. Vallejo is a gem. We're on the San Francisco Bay, we're well located in the region, we've got an amazing diverse workforce, we've got the diversity on paper, we've got that intangible spirit, and I think the mayor's role is being the champion of that externally, and really living and embodying that, and to then get back to the culture piece, creating that culture of, yes, we have real challenges, yes, we have real problems, but let's acknowledge them together. The people of Vallejo are sick of getting gaslit, and we deserve the truth. We deserve truth and honesty and follow through from our leaders, and we need to look at, here's the problem we have, here are the solutions that we can potentially implement, and here's the timeline that we're going to work with. And as mayor, the mayor does have limited power, but one thing the mayor can do is agendize those updates and facilitate that process and facilitate that communication and be a champion externally, trying to bring resources to Vallejo from the county and the state and the federal level, and getting that attention on Vallejo, and changing the culture internally as well, so that there are developers that want to do business here. There are businesses that want to come here, but the city has been so dysfunctional, unfortunately, that I think we lose a lot of them. We tend to attract the vulturous types, and we lose out on the good folks. So let's take a look at how our planning and development services and building and economic development departments operate. Do what Martinez did, putting a vacant property ordinance downtown and getting some of these derelict buildings up to code and tenants. Struggled with because of some of those special interests that have ruled the city for too long.
Thank you.
So we actually did create an illegal dumping ordinance, and we were actually executing an arrest and prosecuting individuals for dumping illegally prior to the pandemic, and we need to bring that back. We also need to lean into our franchise agreement with Recology and have them doing the cleanup that they are supposed to be doing. Also, when we talk about our downtown, there is a lot of old buildings that need seismic retrofit, need sprinklering, have unreinforced masonry, need ADA compliance. All of this is very expensive. So it's great to say we'll put a vacant property ordinance, like charge them more, because that's going to make them invest. You can't force a private property owner to invest, but you can incentivize them. So I got to tour San Antonio's downtown, and I got to see how they, 12 years ago, did a housing first model, where if they did at least 2 housing units above ground, and commercial mixed use on the ground floor, they waived connection fees, waived permit fees, rebated property taxes for a period of time. And at the end of that, they had from 0 residential housing units over 10,000 in a very vibrant and lively downtown area. Now, if we did that for our downtown with a short stick on the back end saying, you pull these permits, you must execute them, or you will pay all of those fees back. And if you sell your property, you don't get to just start that clock all over. That clock remains the same. That is how we will see the catalyst for our downtown development. I see I'm almost out of time, Sue. But also, looking at how we can grow our industry and create more jobs for our folks and creating pathways to those jobs. So I'm on the board of directors. I'm the governor's appointment to the San Francisco Bay Ferry. We've received $120 million to go to a zero emission system. And what we've learned is that clean tech, green maritime industry, there are some resources right here on the island. We have loose boats building boats, but they're not building for our agency.
Thank
We
you.
can do a lot more with that. Thank you.
Thank you for the question again from the community member. I love what you said, potential to progress. I'm gonna have to start using that because all we hear about is the potential. It just goes on forever. But I'm gonna be your mayor that just boldly straight up, we gotta stop saying no to everything. This community in itself is supposed to already been prospering, but we've had this renaissance of no warriors on everything that just anytime there's any sort of development, if they oppose it, they're going to get the rest of the community to oppose it, and it doesn't really give the community a real fair shake because we got like 3% of the community talking for 130,000 people. So we really need to make sure that we come together as a community and understand these issues together as a community and not just let some people dictate what we're talking about here in this community because it happens quite a bit. But the main thing, we have to invest in safety. But I'm gonna say it again, safe cities invest in safety. We're not gonna get safe overnight. We need to increase law enforcement. We need to incentivize bonuses and incentives for officers to wanna come here. We're competing with Napa, we're competing with San Francisco, we're competing with Richmond. These are all places with great facilities where the officers are going and being treated well, and they're probably a lot safer, a much comfortable work environment. All these things matter when you're talking about boosting morale and law enforcement and making sure that people are happy where they're at work. iHeart is a great example of investing in this community, getting $500,000 to keep that program going on is a great thing. Customer service has to be at the forefront of our minds when it comes to this city. We really need to change our customer service attitude, quite honestly. I'm somebody who dealt with customer service for a number of years, so I definitely specialize in trying to make my customers happy, and as mayor, of course, that's the number one goal.
Thank you. I'm actually going to insert a question. We have one more card, but we have a little time. I'm going to insert a question just to follow up on what the candidate just spoke to. So we hear a lot about public safety, attracting officers, economic development, attracting businesses. And one of the candidates mentioned, we get the vultures, which is theoretically we can say that's probably true. When there's chaos and blood on the streets, people know how to make money within that division. And so the question is for you candidates, one of you is going to be elected. In the past, just looking historically at our elections, we've had split councils, we've had opposition when there's a person elected, and if there's been opponents, that opposition seems to continue throughout the terms. What can you do to unify a fractured community, which is bias, which is one of the key things that companies that have good cultures are looking for? What can you do as a candidate to bring the community together? One thing to bring City Hall and change the culture, but what about the community, those that didn't vote for you? So we'll start here and go down the line. 2 minutes.
Yeah, so it's important to always have an open door and always reach across to try to build bridges and build relationships. Again, I'll say that it is incredibly important to create a vision, a community shared vision that unifies and inspires everyone to work together. I will also share that, having our staff, realize that they're valuable and know that they're important. I'll share that there was a staff member that I talked to recently that's, frontline worker. They're out, taking care of potholes and, out on the streets. And they were sharing that the job opportunities in other areas, income is higher, but they live here, they want to be a part of this community, they want to be a part of making a difference. And when they shared to the current mayor that, they weren't earning as much as they would in neighboring communities, they were told, well, maybe you should go get a job there. And that just isn't acceptable. We have to create a core value with the entire community where everyone is respected, everyone is included, nobody is attacked just because they have a different opinion. If everyone feels like they have a critical, valuable role to play in our future together. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that question. The way we unify this new board that's coming along is we get a community person in there. We get somebody who shares the real interest and values of everyday Vallejoans. If you haven't seen my signs yet, boots on the ground, that's my campaign slogan. I'm a businessman here in the city first, and also I like to say I'm a mechanic by day, politician by night. So I'm out there working on cars in the daytime, holding myself accountable to my customers, delivering excellent customer service, and just being a great team player. But just being a normal, human, kind, civil person, I think is the way that we really unify this board. We got these, like you mentioned, the stigma of endorsed candidates kind of keeping the same attitude as the candidate that they got brought in from, and it just doesn't elevate Vallejo at all. It just kind of keeps us in this stagnated place of just division. Like I mentioned earlier, we need 7-0 votes. That should be the goal. We shouldn't be looking for a 4-3, hoping for a 4-3. We need 7-0 because we need a unified board, and the way we're going to do that is we're going to get a candidate in there that's very diverse in the community, looks like this community. Do you know the average age, according to the city of Vallejo residents right now is 36 years old? That tells me that young families are moving to Vallejo, they're finding homes, they're trying to create a foundation, and that's not no knock on anybody in the room. I'm just saying, this is what Vallejo looks like currently. So we need a mayor that's going to look like Vallejo currently right now. We need that diverse candidate. We need that community candidate. I don't care even about the diversity. It's about that person that's being in the community, really entrenched, boots on the ground, knowing what's the real issues and wants and needs of the city of Vallejo. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. At many levels, I'm recalling stories from my entire life, kind of flashes before me for this very challenging question. It appears simple, but also not so simple. In 1893, at the World Parliament of Religions in Chicago, there was a wise man from India, Swami Vivekananda, who came in and delivered a very spectacular universal message. And he addressed the crowd by calling, "Brothers and sisters of America." And so I feel recalling that, and in one of the concluding messages of that speech, he just said, "Do good and be good, all the good you can, where you can, when you can, however much you can, and every opportunity you get." So I feel by leading a personal life of service to people in your community, at City Hall, if you're fortunate to get elected and seated in a responsible position, fulfill the obligations of your oath of office and fiduciary duty, make friends, talk to neighbors. There are 5 chambers of commerce representing all of our ethnicities. Mingle and participate in them wherever you can. And there are amazing nonprofits in town that I have had an opportunity to make friends and be a part of in 15, 16 years. So there are plenty of opportunities that we can. And as far as the city employees, we can't really lead them, we can only lead them to the horse to water, but can't make them drink, right? You can truly inspire them and by hiring better and better people of integrity, people of honesty, people of proven responsibility in their jobs, in their homes. A combination of this perhaps can make a better town. Thank you.
So I love this question because we do need change. We do need change in the night. Something, there it is. We need change in Vallejo. The culture of recent has been incredibly divisive and incredibly exclusionary. I talk to people a lot who have just given up trying to be civically engaged because they don't feel like City Hall is listening to them or is responsive to them. And even amongst city staff, I mentioned before whistleblowers. I mean, there's a toxic culture inside City Hall that absolutely needs to change. And I'm so excited to lead with integrity and with inclusion because Vallejo's greatest asset is our people. And we have such incredible, not just resilience, but know-how in this community. There are so many people with so many things to contribute if only they would be invited in and not pushed away by their city government and put in through the basement of City Hall, but brought in to serve on commissions, brought in to be part of task forces, brought in to be part of study sessions. We have so many resources within our own community to tap. And we also have an incredible opportunity right now for a clean slate of leadership. Because we know that what's been going on in Vallejo is at work. I spoke earlier about the special interests kind of coming together and forming a pact. Well,
Got a better one?
I don't know.
Add on or time?
Thanks. I talked earlier about the special interests forming a pact. We've got an opportunity now with Cassandra James coming in, Board of Supervisors, and with Christopher Cabalden coming in at the State Senate. To, for the first time in Vallejo, just have a complete new leadership. We won't have a single person from that era in office in Vallejo. We'll have new community-oriented folks with backgrounds in policy that will be inclusive and responsive to the community. And I'm excited. We're going to have a completely new city council as well, where we'll be able to create a culture of accountability that, accountability isn't punitive. Accountability is empowering. It's city leaders and community members and staff members working collectively to solve our problems. I'm the chair of the Surveillance Advisory Board for the City of Vallejo, which is the first commission to work with the police department. I've been one of the most vocal critics for police accountability, but I'm working collaboratively with the police department on surveillance technologies to keep us safe. It's that type of leadership. It's getting everybody at the table. It's getting the special interests out and bringing our community together with honesty, with trust, with transparency, and taking the needed steps to get that culture change through. So thank you.
Test that mic again. It may just be the signal and not the battery. I see the green light. Talk, just test it. Just say something.
Hello?
All right, work. All right. We have a couple more questions. I'm going to insert one more. So systemically, right? These are very systemic issues. We know that one term is not going to solve all of our problems. But one big challenge that the city has is from an economic development perspective. Companies look at how the school district performs to decide if that's a city they want to locate into. And as mayor, how can you partner with the school district to improve performance? So we'll start with Mr. Mare.
Thank you for that question. So as mayor, I look to attend school board meetings. I actually do attend them quite frequently. It's been a couple months, quite honestly, being honest with you guys, but I do like to attend the school board meetings to just get the feel of the trustees and figure out kind of what are their main concerns and main points that they like to emphasize while speaking. Of course, the superintendent is a key factor in making sure that the mayor is working with the superintendent to make sure that everything's aligned, because economic development, this is one of the major factors of economic development. When you get these developers asking questions at the Economic Development Commission, hey, is my business going to be safe? What's the longevity of public safety here in the city? I'm seeing all the news, I'm seeing all the bad kind of advertisement. Should I invest in Vallejo? And we really got to change the narrative on this and making it easier for businesses and developers to come here. But it really does start with making sure that our public school system is intact and actually exceeding expectations because it needs a real turnaround. I'm a true believer in the public school system. I graduated from the public school system. I truly believe that it's just underfunded right now, and we really need people that, I'm not saying that the teachers don't care, but we need parents that care more, that make sure that these kids are getting to school and not misbehaving or not going crazy and not taxing the heck out of these teachers, because these are some very influential, very great people that dedicate their lives to other people's children. So we really need to make sure we start putting an emphasis on starting at home. The education starts at home. Quite honestly, we can't blame everything on the government. We just can't. But it definitely starts at home. But customer service is one of the main things. And one way that I emphasize working with the superintendent is just building that real trust and collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. This experience with schools, school districts, and young folks is one of the least experience that I had in my life. But fortunately, I have met a number of truly dedicated school teachers, experts in the field that served on boards, not only in Vallejo School District, but otherwise, and some great parents. So the combination of all of these folks to incorporate a sense of volunteerism, sense of public service early in their school years is a part that I see. Part internship or part volunteer work, provide opportunities for inspired participation that may help them to grow an aspect of it they may not have really done. Partnering with teachers and educational experts is another area that possibly can have specialist educationists who are specialized in their field, in early childhood or middle school or high school. One thing I felt strongly as an immigrant American is the fact that before before college and after high school, if our children had an opportunity to spend an entire year in public service and community service, their attitude towards life, work, and their community would be very different. And I sense that. And so I would like to fill in some of these gaps as a mayor, as a leader, by bringing the experiences of all these parents who serve in the city, and the school district leaders, and the community nonprofit leaders together to benefit the community and the community of youth as much as we can. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is a tremendous issue, and I'm a public school kid, K through college, and started my career in K-12 education, and I know that the mayor and city council have a limited ability to impact the school district. But one of the things that I think a lot about are after-school programming and are things like sports and arts. I worked at multiple after-school programs earlier in my career. One at a Boys and Girls Club where we were based at a school site where we were taking state funds at a school and we were implementing it as a nonprofit. And then later I managed an after-school program where we were getting federal funds for AmeriCorps volunteers to work the program at the school, and we were getting our snacks funded from the state program. So that's the type of collaboration and partnership that I think we're missing in Vallejo, and I would love to be part of facilitating better discussions between the city, the school district, GDRD, and our nonprofit partners to make sure that when there are funding sources available for programs that we have, some of our nonprofits can't go for this stuff alone, or GDRD or the school district, they can't go for these grants alone. There has to be partnership. And the program management that I did right before my current job, I managed economic empowerment programming for refugees and immigrants with the International Rescue Committee, and all the grants we wrote, we worked with the city, with the county, with our fellow organizations. There was a ton of collaboration, and I think that's how we unlock some more services for our young people. And I mean, there's a whole lot of work that has to be done. It's something I'm really passionate about, obviously working at community college. And another thing that I would love to work with the school board on is I think of schools, schools are the places that kind of have our families the most. Our parents are going there for drop off and pick up and events. I would love to see a model where we have schools as community centers, and I know that's something that BCOSD is looking at. I would love to be out in community, having events, town halls, events with the city out at schools. So we're meeting people where we are, and we're unlocking and accessing folks that maybe haven't been engaged previously. So that's one thing I think can be done out of the mayor's office.
Thank you.
So youth has been a top priority for me for a very long time. I actually was successful in getting it to be a top tier priority with the city itself in 2019 for the first time ever. I also was a founding committee member for the 2x2 committee, which is made up of 2 council members and 2 school board trustee members. I was actually also trying to get GDRD to be a part of that committee, but the former superintendent wasn't interested in that, and so it was just the school and the city council. But I've already had conversations with the new superintendent, and he is interested in bringing GDRD into that conversation, because as we were talking about different programs, GDRD would be the one implementing them, so we need to have them at the table as we were talking about these programs and opportunities. And you know, I was at a conference one year, and there was another council member from another state that said, you know, so often we talk about our kids and how important they are, and you know, how much we want to make sure that they're successful, and we always point to the school district that they're the ones responsible for that. But the truth is, they only have our kids 20% of the time. That other 80%, that's all of our responsibility. And so what are we doing, all of us as a community, to step into that space and support our kids and make sure that they have after-school mentors and tutoring available to them to make sure that they're learning at every opportunity they can. I was very passionate about creating a permanent full-time position with the city that is dedicated to the youth, and I was excited to have that position filled before I turned out in 2022, because that meant it lasted long after my time. Also, I was very excited to help create the funding pathway for the Vallejo Early Learning Center, which is reopening an elementary school that shut down during COVID, and giving an opportunity for 300 children ages 0 to 5 to have robust early education so they can learn when they get to school.
Okay, we have one more audience question. Following the audience question, you will each have 1 minute to share with the group what's one thing you would want them, what's one thing you want them to remember about you, and then Kent's going to come up with closing. So this last question reminds me of what's currently happening in the city of Inglewood, which is in Los Angeles, a city of 9 square miles that has historically been incredibly challenged by crime, systemically. The school district is in state receivership. The city was on the brink of bankruptcy. And their mayoral election, a little over a decade ago, the person they put in office came in and almost single-handedly transformed that entire city just by sheer power of force. And so that's a good case study if you want to pay attention to a city with a city manager form of government and how influential a mayor seat can be. So this last question is, we are positioned in a hub of tech, biotech, as a Bay Area community. What plans have you considered to attract companies and promote economic development? New life sciences, incubators, etc. And what the question is really getting to is, how as a mayor can you use your office to go out and recruit? What relationships do you have to leverage? What vision do you have to go out and bring companies to the city? Because really, anything that's going to happen in Vallejo, we need outside investment. So we'll start with Andrea, or I should say, Ms. Source. Apologies.
Thanks. I appreciate the example. I do think it's going to be hard. We're not going to be able to fix our problems overnight, but I think with some change, with the different style of leadership, we can really reinvigorate the city. And I think so the first thing that we have to do is we have to clean up our own house and make sure that we're not setting up barriers to folks that want to do business here. So before we go out and try to recruit companies, we need to make sure that our planning and our development departments are doing the right thing, treating everybody fairly, that we're ending this special treatment for special interests, that we get our city functioning, that we get our budget under control and make sure that we're fiscally sustainable, because those are the things that folks are going to consider when they're trying to decide whether to come here. And I mean, the assets are there. The advocacy is easy in terms of our location, the talent that we have, the affordability relative to the rest of the Bay Area. You've got the biotech wave in Vacaville and all the stuff happening in the rest of the Bay. We can absolutely attract. We've got the ferry, we've got a lot to work with. I think the most important thing is making sure that we are not relying on one sector. I think we've experienced that with the Navy, and I think we need to learn from that. So I would be very interested in getting in diverse employers that are going to meet the needs of different segments of our workforce, maybe bring people in, but also provide jobs for the folks that are already here, for our young people that are already here. And I'm absolutely, I think, as much as I can be that cheerleader, but an advocate as mayor to tell people what's great about Vallejo and get them here. I'm excited to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. As an immigrant American, I always felt like United Nations when I first, entered Arizona for about 9 or 10 years, having lived with people from 28, 29 countries before I was married. And coming to Vallejo was another changed version of that with all our diversity in ethnicities. And what that does is it just brings in the consciousness of the value of how people lead in families, how people work, how they develop friendships, maintain friendships. Because of all of that, the trust and the commitment for any good cause, whether the cause is for a city or for developing nonprofit goals and objectives, etc. As a Sister City Commissioner for a term, and then having served in the Sister City Association for 15 years now, 14, 15 years on the board, I had a chance to participate to visit Ensenada, Mexico in 2017 and 2019. And what I saw in the delegation was a environmental project, a wine industry, a culinary industry based on culture, because people travel all over the world to come in and from all over the world come to Ensenada, have an innovation center just like a Mare Island or like a Treasure Island. And their project appears to be really picking up a lot of momentum with the young people, attracting entrepreneurs to invest and create a more harmonious culture of variety and global investment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for so much. Thank you for that question so much, and also giving us a little bit of insight on Inglewood as well. How I will attract companies as mayor. First off, I'm a small business owner myself. I truly believe that small business is the backbone, the real key that we really need to focus on. It's the real fundamental here in the city of Vallejo, because since the Navy left in '96, we're still struggling to find out what is our niche, what is our industry. But what you can count on when you elect Dwight Monroe Jr. for mayor is that I'll be your biggest cheerleader all over the city, all over the state, all over the county. I'll be meeting people where they are. We don't know what we can get until we see it and visualize it, and then bring it back to the city and implement it. But we have to execute the plan. That's the real truth. We have to go out, seek solutions, bring them back to the city, make sure it can work cordially with the rest of the council, and also send that direction to the city manager, and then ultimately vote on it and make implemental changes here in the city of Vallejo. But people know me. I've sat on these boards for years. I am relentless with my pursuit of Vallejo and the happiness of Vallejo. Whatever it may be, I don't care if we need to get a flag hung up on a building or a new banner downtown. I'm going to work as hard as I can to do it. Now, talking about giant tech companies and different companies, California Forever, I know I definitely opposed it, but if you were listening closely, the gentleman talked about all these slates of technology companies that were committed to moving to that area. So why are we can't stop the negotiations right now. If we're looking for improvement and we're looking for new investors to come to the city of Vallejo, we already kind of got them in this area. So let's keep that conversation going. It doesn't have to be with California Forever. I'm talking about these companies that are already targeting Solano County. Let's make a move to Vallejo if we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Butts actually served on my Public Safety Policy Committee with the League of California Cities and Mayor of Inglewood. And so I'm not not waiting to become mayor to start working on these kinds of things. So I have already been helping a local business create the Mare Island Biotech Incubator, which is in development right now. And I've already connected them with the Center for Urban Excellence to make sure that our youth are getting internship opportunities right now. I have been working to look at how we can grow the green maritime industry locally by supporting our existing businesses and working to bring those contracts locally, and also supporting the workforce development for those different jobs. For example, the Working Waterfront Coalition, which is made up of workforce development boards all over the Bay Area, employers from all over the Bay Area, and chambers of commerce from all over the Bay Area, to create a training program for individuals to get into the maritime industry. And I fought really hard to make sure that the first cohort started right here in Vallejo. So I'm excited to see more of those kinds of opportunities where we can attract new businesses, we can grow existing businesses, and create more jobs and create the workforce for our people to be able to get those jobs so that we all have the opportunity to thrive. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna wrap up. So we're gonna start with MISTEA and then pass it to go down. Take 1 minute. And what is one thing you would like Mare Island voters and Vallejo voters to remember you by?
Yeah, so I was honored to serve as your councilwoman for 9 years. I understand the unique challenges and opportunities our city faces. My vision for Vallejo is bold. I aim to attract new industries and expand existing industries that align with our community's strengths, ensuring we create not just jobs, but sustainable careers that uplift our residents. To achieve this, I'm committed to developing a skilled workforce tailored to these industries, providing education and training from cradle to career and beyond that empower our people to succeed in the evolving job market. But we can't stop at job creation. Vallejo needs a transportation infrastructure that supports our growth, which is why I'm advocating for a multimodal transportation hub. This hub will serve as the backbone of high-density, mixed-use, transit-oriented development, transforming our waterfronts and downtown into vibrant, thriving areas that connect our community and attract further investment throughout our city. We all know the challenges we face: widespread crime, lack of trust in law enforcement and the government, and too many competing priorities that our budget can't sustain. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you to everybody in attendance tonight. Again, my name is Dwight Monroe Jr. I'm running for Vallejo Mayor this upcoming election. Ballots are out this week. I'm on the number 2 slot on the ballot. Let's win, let's make change. So let's reiterate everything. I am fully committed to the city of Vallejo. Like I mentioned to you guys, I am relentless with my pursuit. I won't stop, and I look to represent all of Vallejo, every single individual in the city of Vallejo. Like I said earlier, my campaign slogan is boots on the ground. I'm really about that action. I'm really down on the ground, and depending on whatever it may be. We can cleanups, community enhancing programs that beautify the city, whatever it may be. I'm going to be the number 1 mayor who is really involved in the deep process, really involved and has a consensus of what Vallejoans want, not just this 3% or this 10% of Vallejo, but the whole city of Vallejo. I will be that mayor that really encourages participation and engagement. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. As I stated earlier, this is Mare Island is where I have spent second most amount of time on a given week, month, and year after year, because of the Vallejo People's Garden, all of the new businesses that have come up, and then the activities in the Cold Shed Art Studios, now called the Mare Island Art Studios, and of course Mare Island Brewery, and all the events that happen here on the Mare Island. I have many friends who own homes, and 1 or 2 who are involved in the businesses. And this experience of being in Mare Island is very dear to me, and it will continue to do so. And I will work with Mare Island Company. I've already met once or twice to understand where they are at and how practically they are going to move on working with the community, keeping the interest of the community and also promise everything we bring you to. Thank you.
So I don't think there's anyone in this room that thinks that the status quo of Vallejo is working. We need change, we need accountability, and accountability starts at the top. The top of the city of Vallejo org chart is the voters, is the people. You elect a mayor, you elect city council. This is your chance to hold your leaders accountable. If you're happy with the direction the city's going, if you're happy with the leadership of the past, by all means keep those folks in office. But if you want change, you have to vote for change. We have to do things differently. We have to cut the lip service, we have to cut the excuses, and we have to get to work. And we have to restore trust in our city government with leaders that we can trust. Look at my background, look at what I've done, the decisions I've made, my service in Peace Corps, my work with the ACLU, my work as an educator. Think about who you trust to act in your best interest behind closed doors, and think about our opportunity to take back our city starting November 5th, which is a start line, not a finish line. That is when we will get to work together to create a government that is more responsive to our community, more effective, that works for the people, where there's no more treatment, special treatment for special interests, and everyone has a seat at the table. Thank you.
I know it was not easy. You all gave great answers, and you showed up today. You're out on the campaign trail. Can we just give them all another round of applause? And one more thank you just for the organizers. Susan, can you stand up? And Ken's over here, and others. We have to acknowledge them. We have to. We're going to over here.
Yeah, we'll let you guys go in just 2 seconds. You guys have heard going down to the pub. That word pub comes from being a public house. Public houses are where they used to have discourse, and that's where we learned about what could happen in the future and who we should elect. And I just want to thank all the candidates for coming out. You guys all did an excellent job of portraying yourselves. And I did want to tell you, we're actually closed at the bar over here, but next door we're open if you guys need a pint after all this. And last and final, unless Susan's got anything else, no? Last and final, just want to give a round of applause and thank Landis, and we'll let you all go.